how he was going to get everything done. The main problem was that he was kind of a control freak, but in a good way. He simply enjoyed helping out with everything that pertained to his business. Hiring a team of mechanics was supposed to lessen his load, but he was still a hands-on boss who liked to oversee all of their work so that he knew they were up to his standards. So between being a business owner, mechanic, manager, bookkeeper, receptionist, and in charge of any and all marketing promotions, Devin was spreading himself thin. Hell, it was all-consuming his life and leaving no time to actually have a life outside of the garage. And now all the tension was back in his body. "Awesome," he muttered. Clouds were starting to move in, and it seemed to be getting dark awful quickly, he thought to himself. Virginia wasn't known for any massive amounts of rain this time of year, so he wasn't worried. But it still put a little damper on his mood. The sunshine had felt perfect, along with the open windows, but it looked like it wouldn't be long before the sky was ready to open. Not the best way to end a relaxing weekend. With a muttered curse, he rolled up the windows on his Ford F-250. Devin couldn't help but rub his hand reverently over the dash of the new truck. It was something he had always wanted. Something new of his own that he didn't have to work on. That's not to say he didn't love his job and his career. He did. But after having his head bent over an engine all week long, it was nice to know he wouldn't have to do it on his own vehicle. Growing up, Devin had envisioned himself owning his own shop and driving some sort of classic muscle car he'd completely restored on his own. What he didn't realize back then was how much it cost to do something like that and the time and effort you would have to put in to do it right. So instead of the restoring, he'd put that time and money into making his business something he could be proud of. But every once in a while, he toyed with the idea of finding that perfect car he could set up in his garage at home and make it into something spectacular. Hell, at least once a week, he found himself online simply searching for that diamond in the rough that he could afford and that he could turn into a pet project or a hobby. So far, he'd had zero luck in finding anything, but he knew someday he would. And in the meantime, he had more than enough vehicles to work on in his shop. A slow smile spread across his face because, yeah, owning his own business in his hometown was still a dream, even without his dream car. Life was good. "And we've come full circle," he murmured as he saw a flash of lightning off in the distance. Checking the GPS, he saw he still had another hour of driving ahead of him before he was back in Sweetbriar Ridge. On a clear day, it was a thing of beauty driving up the mountain into town, but with a downpour like this, well, it had been a long time since he'd had to do anything like that. With a weary sigh, he resigned himself to driving the rest of the way home in a storm. He couldn't control the weather, so he forced all negative thoughts aside as he exited off the interstate and merged onto the small highway that would take him the rest of the way, and said a silent prayer that he'd make it there without incident. "You have got to be kidding me!" MacKenzie Holland's voice was a near screech as her car started to sputter and smoke billowed out from under the hood. "Seriously, now?" With no GPS and no way of knowing exactly where she was, panic and hysteria quickly set in. Carefully, she pulled the car over to the side of the road and cursed her own stupidity, and yes, calling it stupidity was putting it mildly. Maybe deciding to pack up your entire life on the spur of the moment while her cheating, low-life boyfriend tried to explain the naked woman bent over the dining room table wasn't the best decision she could have made. Well, that, and forgetting her phone charger and refusing to pick one up at any of the gas stations and convenience stores because she thought she had great battery life. Stupid, stupid, stupid. She'd left everything she couldn't fit in her car back in that crappy apartment in Syracuse and hit the road with no real destination in mind.